Good morning, I guess it still is, huh?
Yep.
And welcome to our brown bag meeting. We're going to start with invocation and pledges to allegiance. Roger?
Everybody please stand. Lord, may your goodness and love be present among us today. Come bless our gathering with unity, hope, and vision. As we meet today, be with us. Breathe life into our thoughts, ideas, and decisions. Come inspire us to be the best we can be. May we be shining examples of your goodness and truth within the workplace. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Ro.
Thank you, sir.
Any public comments? Okay. Item 4, consider approval of the purchase of elementary school supply packs.
Yes, sir. District staff's asking the board to approve the purchase of supply kits for our elementary schools. This would supply school supplies for kindergarten through 5th grade for the start of the 23-24 school year. Basically, we provided a list to a company of our school supply list, and they set these packages up, and we received different quotes. And we felt like the best value is do school supply packs from Educational Products. It's a cost of about $147,000 to supply 5,550 of our elementary kids with free school supplies. This would be from budgeted funds that we have left over in our budget.
Preschool supplies or?
K through 5th grade, because our Head Start programs purchase the pre-K supplies.
So then the kids don't have to buy any school supplies next year?
Period.
Okay,
Pretty cool, huh?
yeah. I move.
A second.
We have a motion, a second, the board approve the purchase of school supply packs for educational products from Educational Products Incorporated. Anybody have any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Yes, I asked him. He said there was nobody. Okay. Consider approval of purchase of a student activity bus.
Yes, sir. As we've been going through our bond programs, we've been buying regular school buses, special education buses, and more recently we started adding these smaller activity buses. These are very convenient for athletic programs, small fine arts, and anytime you don't need a CDL to drive these, you have just need some qualifications and have a driver license and be put in our system. And there's been a run on these. Other districts are buying them as well because they're super convenient and they're easier to use and you don't need a CDL. So Thomas Bus Center actually got this bus for another district, and I guess the other district couldn't, for whatever reason, can't purchase it. So they called us first and said, hey, we have this bus available, do you want it? And we're going to continue to add these types of buses to our fleet. And so this is just an opportunity because these are on high demand and there's like a long waiting list to get these. So we would like to go out and just purchase. It's only one that they had, but they gave us the first stab at it. And so we were asking the board to approve it. We will use some leftover funds that we do have in transportation department to make this purchase.
How much is the bus?
It's roughly $84,100.
I move.
That's
I'm
like the
sorry.
one we went on a tour, right?
Yes, yes.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, that the board approve the purchase of a student activity bus at total cost of $84,100 from Thomas Bus of Texas. Now, is there any questions?
How
Comments?
many passenger buses?
It's 14.
14.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. This is a good time for everybody to get lunch before items of information. So let's go get our lunch. We'll pick up with item 6, items of information. A, bond parameter cell update. Brandon?
Yes, sir. So I just want to point out today, we have Samco here, Mark and Ryan, and also I'd like to point out we have our bond counsel here, Weston B. Iconic and Bertha Juan. This is kind of like the team behind the scenes when we were going out for a bond, and trying to get that thing passed, all the paperwork, making sure we're following the rules, planning. And now that that part's over, now it's about the execution, getting to the market, making sure that we're getting the market at the right time, but also following all the guidelines and the rules to actually go out and get the bond. So today, Mark's here to talk about a little bit about what's happening here in the next couple of weeks and the next couple of months. Talk about our bond underwriting syndicate and how we're going to structure that, and then really talk about the timeline of the parameters. So we'll get turned on. Mark, and you have this little document here. If you want to follow along, he's kind of just going to briefly kind of go through this.
So my name is Mark McCliney with Samco Capital Markets, Ryan Cunningham with Samco Capital Markets, Juan Aguilar and Humberto Aguilar with your all's bond lawyers. A few years ago, our last bond sale, we did a syndicate. We created a syndicate. In that first page, you'll see the 8 members of the syndicate. And these are all really, really top-notch firms, both regional, local, and national presence. So we really thought we had a really good syndicate, not even knowing what we were taking on the future bond issues. So this was created, it's our syndicate that we work with.
Mark, can you explain kind of why we have this? Like, what is bond underwriters role? Because I know some people are
So our role as financial advisor, we help structure, help get, just like Brandon was saying, help go through all the budgeting, all the planning, work with bond lawyers, make sure everything's done legally. We're your fiduciary. We work for you. The underwriter works for their end client. They want to buy your bonds, which is a loan. They want to buy your bonds, then turn around and sell them to their customers. You might think of Merrill Lynch is a broker firm. They sell it to their individual investors. These are all brokerage firms that sell to their investors. Those investors might be Allstate Insurance, they might be Frost Bank, they might be IBC, whatever it is, all throughout the country. Their fiduciary duty is not to you as a district, but to their customers that are buying the bonds. So we work together with them to get you the lowest possible interest rate. This group is who we did an RFP about 3 years ago and created the syndicate. We had 20 respondents, and we narrowed it down to these 8. And it may have been 18, it may have been 21, but it was a whole slew of them. We have 2 bond issues that we're anticipating this upcoming next few months. The first is the first tranche of our newly voted bonds. It's going to be roughly $200 million into your all's construction fund. And in that syndicate, you can see there's 5 of the 8 we're choosing. The first, and everybody wants to be the senior manager, because they're the ones that control the syndicate and who gets what orders. Hilltop Securities is who we think would do a great job on that, with Raymond James, Piper Sandler, Frost Bank, and BOK Financial. And that would be the syndicate for that bond issue. We have a refunding bond that we could do later on in the year. We can't do them at the same time because these bonds are not callable. And to do a refunding, it has to be done within 90 days. And so we thought we would set it up now and get the syndicate working on that one. So we had 8. This syndicate will be roughly about $61 million, and we're going to use the other 3 firms, or we're going to suggest to you as a board, that we choose the other 3 firms for this deal. And that would be RBC Capital Markets as the senior manager, FHN Capital Markets, and Baird Financial as the round out of that team. If you look at the next page.
Mark, real quick, can you explain what the refunding bond is?
Yes. So a refunding bond is exactly like
Yes, sir.
refinancing your home. You have bonds outstanding, and when you sold those bonds, we state that the investor can lose them at the district's decision if we choose to call them away. Now, why would we call them away if we can refinance them at a lower rate? So we set up a deal when we sell the bonds 10 years from now. So for example, the new bonds we sell, the $200 million, in 10 years, we will have the ability to take them from the investors, and we would do that if we can refinance them and get a lower interest rate and borrow and save money for the taxpayers. So 10 years ago, we sold the 2013 bonds, and they're callable now this February. So what we're doing is we're going to call those with a higher interest rate and replace them with bonds at a lower interest rate and save annual debt service, save interest over the rest of the loan. And so we're going to do that. The plan, and we'll get to the calendar in just a moment, the plan will be to do that later this fall. The next page there has the list of all 8, and it just shows who is being assigned what over the years, including when we had our first bond issue in 2021 that this whole syndicate has. So everybody you'll see has had an opportunity to be in the deal in our syndicate, and we'll keep looking at future refundings. We have a future bond issue perhaps next year or perhaps 2 years from now on the balance of the voted bonds that, again, we'll be working with the syndicate. Now, what happens from time to time is firms merge, are sold, or get out of the business. And so this list may change, but it has been in place for the last several years. Timing going forward. The $200 million, and again, that's subject to change. The plan for pricing, and this is the timetable there, is to price about July 26th. And I say about because what we're looking for and what we're planning to do is come to your June 20th meeting, your board meeting in June, and we're going to ask for a parameter sale. We've done that before here, where you authorize Dr. Ball and Mr. Chris to move forward with the bonds and allow them to sign all the legal documents and award if we meet the parameters. And those parameters are going to be set up, the set interest rate, set final maturity, who the underwriters are, and it will allow us to price at the best opportune of the market during that week. And so I said it's scheduled for the 26th. It may get moved up if we think a market is hot and we're ready. We may go ahead and proceed. Right now, we're still waiting for the permanent school fund guarantee, which is the AAA rating, which we didn't think we were going to qualify, and rules changed, and now we will qualify, which brings us to the best rating we could possibly have, lowers the interest rate because there's less risk. So that's going to be asked, we're going to ask to do that on June 20th, and then the refunding, we're going to ask also on that same day to authorize a parameter sale there, and notice there, that bond sale won't be till September 27th. Again, it would make great sense to be able to do it in the same time, but since those bonds are not callable, we have to do a refunding within a 90-day of the call date. And so you'll see we actually close November 8th, which puts us within the 90 days of the February 2024 call date. So this is really, we don't want to come to you on a board meeting and ask you for the first time to look at it, approve it, okay it. So we wanted to bring this to your attention now, see if you have any questions, get permission to proceed, and that permission would come back with actual bond orders that Humberto and Juan would draft for the June 20th board meeting. That's a lot of information. Brandon, there's anything else that we need to include?
I would just say that a key part to the dollar amount on the first page, the 200 million, is us looking at our projects on one side, and at the same time, I know I mentioned when we were going out for bond, the possibility that our values still skyrocket and the tax rate won't go up, but then having more capacity to borrow more money. So that's what's happening right now. Our preliminary values are gone up another 16%. And so in July, about the 25th, we're getting our certified values. So in essence, we're gonna have a lot of capacity to borrow more money up front than we thought we initially would. We could probably borrow all of it, but the key to this is like, we have 2 elementaries in there, and we don't necessarily need 2 elementaries right away. So we may save off that last 50 million for another time to go back here in 2 or 3 years if we see that we need the capacity to add another elementary. So we only want to borrow what we need to borrow for the projects that we have that we can entertain and also get done in the next 3 to 4 years, because you can't borrow money and sit on it for 6 to 7 years, because you'll run into arbitrage, you'll run into some issues with that side of it. And so right now, just planning, we're looking at the 200 million, going out and getting enough money to do all our projects except for that last elementary, and then really start planning those out. So that's really all I had to add. What happens now is, like Mark said, we will come back at the next board meeting and to approve the recommendation to go out for a parameter sale. In essence, what that does is it allows all of us with our bond underwriting syndicate to really watch the market so that we get in the market and get the best interest rates that allows us to have savings. So that's really what we're going to be asking to allow me and Dr. Ball to let Mark and the team know we're ready to go, because they're telling us this is a good time to go. So that's really all I had to add.
Juan or Humberto, do you all have anything?
Just, very briefly, again, and this is a tool that the district has used before, and Mark mentioned it. We will be using a parameters order. So the board will be delegating to authorized representatives of the district, in this case, Brandon and Ms. Ball will be the authorized reps of the district, and they really can execute the transaction within certain defined parameters that we will ensure is reflected in the order with consultation with your financial advisor. So you will be aware of the parameters when you adopt that order, but again, it's with the new bond money, not all districts can do that. You have to, for school districts, you have to have a certain amount outstanding, and also your debt has to be rated in the 4 highest categories. So it's really a benefit for the district and a reflection of your good stewardship of the public funds that you're able to do this, to have that flexibility to time the pricing of the bonds. So we'll ensure that those parameters are accurately reflected, and we'll report that to you at the time the order is adopted.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to Mark, because this is overwhelming for just regular lay people, right? But we just have full confidence in you and your firm, that you always steer us in the right direction, and we've just had such great success with y'all. We really appreciate it.
Anyone else? Okay, no action required. It's information only. Going on to item B.
Thank you, guys.
One.
Okay, Roger, what do I
Item B, so you ready? Okay, first of all, I know that I'd like to introduce Scott Stevens. Many of you all will probably know from his previous stint here, but he is the district's chief financial officer. I have the privilege to be working with him. We've been working behind the scenes on budget for the 23-24 school year. Right now, we're in the very early stages. We, just so for everybody to know this, we have to adopt the budget and the tax rate before we start the school year. So we have till August 31st to get this done. Included in this is anything new that we're doing, that we're adding as initiatives or staff. We need to make sure we have that in the budget, and any compensation plan we're doing. And so right now we're in the very preliminary stages of studying our demographics, looking at how we ended the school year financially, and also with our student populations, and then really projecting out what that looks like for next school year. So Scott's kind of go through this. He will cover the agenda and then kind of get into the weeds of the different pieces of the budget.
Hey, am I doing that, Roger? Okay.
And then to follow along, we actually printed out a sheet for you there if you want. You'll put it on the screen, but if you want to take notes or anything.
Yes, the only thing missing is my jokes. I wrote them down pretty ahead of time. All right, so. All right, well, I believe it is officially afternoon, so can I start?
Yes, please.
All right, well, good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Ball. Today, we're going to go over the budget workshop, as Brandon just mentioned. And so, I've got about an hour's worth of information to present, but we're going to try to do it in 20 minutes because we're on a tight schedule here. So,
That's all I want.
all right.
I don't want chocolate.
Here we have the agenda for today.
I'll
Basically,
leave you a piece.
this is kind of what we're hoping to accomplish today, and also our goal is to try to get your feedback on what we're presenting, and hopefully kind of guide us as to what you guys believe would be a good compensation package for the district. So those are our two goals today. So, all right. So we added a slide today for the new board members that just joined us. Since this is your first time to go through the budget process, it's very fun. And but don't worry, if I don't mention anything, there's always a board policy you can refer back to. And so that's board policy CE legal and CE local. But the gist of all the budget basically is superintendent tells us to write a budget, we write it, you guys approve it based on fund and function. So it's pretty cut and dry, it's very good. You guys approve the general fund, the child nutrition budget, and the debt service budget. All right. And then at some point, we will approve you guys will recommend a tax rate, and we'll approve it as well. So, all right. Speaking of expenditures and food service and interest in seeking, here we have our current year-to-date revenues versus expenditures as of May 30th. I'm sure it's changed by now, but as you can see, we've collected a lot of revenue, mostly in the form of taxes, and so in November, December, January is when the district receives majority of their taxes. That's why your interest in seeking fund, which is made up almost exclusively of taxes, is so received right now. And on the bottom side, you'll see our expenditures that we haven't spent yet, but don't worry, we'll get to it at some point. But just kidding. But the interest in seeking, we also have a big bond payment due, I believe, in August so that will be taken care of at that point as well. So, all right. I believe y'all see that once a month, this report right here. So.
Yep. Sorry, I had to stop it in my mouth. I apologize. Just, we put this in the board book every month, and what it shows you is where we're tracking. So this is something that me and Scott will continue to look at. Okay, what revenue we're bringing in on that first line on the top. So we have $107 million that we actually brought in. We have $26 million still to collect. And then we're looking at, are we still running a good budget? Because what are our expenditures? So we've spent out about $1.6 million. So you can see that we're tracking really well. And as we get into the summer months, we can continue to look at that to see, are we gonna need to use fund balance to cover any of our deficits? And so that's where, when we get to August, we start saying, hey, we're running a little short. We may have to influx some money from fund balance to meet our operation. We do that for each one of these budgets, just to kind of give you some insight on why we even do this.
All right. All right, so as we begin the budget process, we have some assumptions that we plug into our models being spreadsheets, but anyways, we look at our, hey, y'all have the paper in front of you, right?
There.
I just want to touch it. All right, so you guys all have the paper in front of you, so. So you have we have our projected enrollment that we look at every year, and there's demographic studies. So currently we think that we're gonna have about 13,000 students, almost 14,000 students in the district, which that sounds great, but the reality is that they don't all show up to class. And so the current ADA right now is what we're being paid off of. And as you can see, it's not as high as it has been in the past, and that is a little area of concern for not only Southwest ISD, but for the state and the city in general. Because the higher the ADA, the more money we receive, so it's very important to us. We also want to point out, as Brandon mentioned earlier, the property values have increased. 15% increase is very exciting. However, if kids don't come to class, we don't really get to see all that increase. So it's very important again, the ADA is super important as a driving mechanism for our budget, so. All right, is there anything else in that one, Brandon, you want to talk about?
No, I just want to point out, if you look at the last bullet, on the first section, you know, when the state has a budget for you that we project, you know, almost 2 years out. And so we try to project our ADA on what it's going to be, but post-pandemic, it's been hit or miss for districts. And I know I shared this last year, that we got overpaid about $6.7 million from the state because our ADA was so low. It's not as detrimental this year, but we are still tracking about 2.7 million that the state's going to, because the state doesn't realize this till like almost next year that, hey, we overpaid y'all, because we have our final data sent to them. So they don't take the money back, they just say, well, I already paid you that, so I'm not giving it to you for next year. So we're looking at approximately being overpaid about 2.7 million, based on our, we need the money, but based on our statistics and our ADA, that's gonna impact our budget for next year. So we always wanna make sure we're upfront with y'all, so that at the end of the year, because how we balance that sometimes is that we don't fill every job. So if we have 5 million in staff, that's not, that we never hired, sometimes it's a wash. But when you start getting into these bigger numbers, like in the millions, because usually we can get overpaid a couple $100,000, or they owe us money, they end up paying us next year. We've never really been in this predicament where we're in millions of dollars, and so those are significant impacts to our budget, because 2.7, that's like a 2% raise. If we wanted to do a 2% raise, that money would be needed for that. And so I just wanted to be upfront about that piece.
All right,
Can I say something real quick?
Yes, ma'am.
I think maybe we should consider, figuring out how to educate our parents a little, on ADA and, explaining, just in simple terms like we could understand, what it looks like when their child's absent, right? How it hurts the school, their classroom, the teach, whatever. That way they have a better
Idea.
visual of maybe not letting them stay home just because,
Yes, okay.
But I mean, because I would imagine that most parents you talk to, they don't have a clue what ADA is.
Correct, correct. And I know there was a huge push, we didn't start off by saying this at the beginning. I know that most of y'all follow legislation sessions, and so hopefully you know by now, they went into regular session, came out with no plan for any funding influx. They went into special session, they didn't have any plan. All they did was, we're gonna, with a property plan, which I don't know if they're finalizing or not, but they haven't really talked about anything about helping districts get through this financial, and it's really hard time for districts, because right now we're off the cuff of the pandemic, everybody's still dealing with the ADA, and there's a lot of districts that had put a lot of, how do I say it? They had a lot of money in ESSER funds that they were able to stabilize their issues. A lot of districts are gonna be facing those fiscal cliffs that they warned us about, because they had to use those funds to sustain. We tried really hard not to use those funds to add new things, and we use those funds to put money in the fund balance. So you will see that we have grown fund balance through the pandemic to get ready for this, because to be upfront with y'all, we're gonna be running a deficit budget for a while, because we still need to be competitive in raises, there's still needs at campuses, and we, as a team, collectively are gonna have to really work hard on ADA, because those are some dollars we're leaving on the table. So
Yeah.
we should have started with that, in preference, we were kinda hoping that the state would come in and really help us, and maybe they still will come back in a special session, but right now, we're budgeting based on current law, how we're thinking next year is just exactly how it was this year.
So I really think having some kind of a ripple effect picture
Yeah.
that shows how, that way they know,
Correct.
what happens.
And to add to that, in my leadership task, there's 36 people from different districts, and almost everyone has a deficit budget.
And with a state with a huge rainy day, that's 30 days.
But it's raining day. It's
All right,
raining
Scott,
day.
sorry.
no, you're good, you're good. 33 billion.
It's not raining.
All right,
Pretty
so
close.
speaking of deficit budgets, this is our preliminary general fund budget. As you can see, after running our revenue estimate templates, we are projecting $143 million, which is it's a good deal of money. However, it's not gonna cover our current budgeted expenses right now that we have. And as Brandon mentioned earlier, we have the, within those personnel, we have about, there's some unfilled positions in there. We brought in some ESSER positions back into the general fund. So this is our, I guess if we hired for everybody, this is what it would be. So we're starting out at a $6.5 million fund balance deficit at this moment in time, so.
And that's with no raise.
This is right now, if we took everything we had, looking at all of our allotments, keeping almost everything the same, plus or minus, we've had to add some money to like facilities and maintenance budget. And if we just didn't do anything, this is what our budget looked like. And Scott brought up a good point, which I'm talking about. We have some, we are gonna budget for the positions, but we have a lot of vacancies.
Okay.
And so there is that room in there that we never spend a full budget. Like we're not gonna spend $149,655,000 because not everybody spends every dollar out of their budget, and we don't hire every position. But we budget for it because we don't tell people not to hire those positions, and we tell them not spend all their money. But anybody that has extra, if they don't spend it, it's really good for us. I mean, we favor that if they don't need to use it. And so this is right now, if we pass the budget with no compensation plan and we didn't add any more staff going forward after today, this is what the budget would be.
You mean including the people that, vacancies?
Correct, including the vacancy. And we will share that, we just finished the last 6 weeks, so now we have our full data of all our demographics. And so we've looked at projecting 88, but what we gotta go back and do is project like how many extra special ed students we'll have next year, because that will drive revenue. How many at-risk kids will we possibly have, and so we still gotta project that part. So I think our revenue's still gonna go up a little bit, but understand when you have more special ed students, that's also an expenditure. So we possibly need to add extra instructional aides or an extra teacher, an extra life skills teacher. So sometimes we get those numbers and we start hearing from our different departments, this is how many students we're projecting next year, but they also come back and say, well, we need supplies, we need probably next year, teachers, and we're gonna work through those. And so, as we can see our revenue going up, as we see you're getting those numbers from our special population groups, your bilingual programs, your special ed programs, your CTE programs, their expenditures might go up a little as well as we start getting those numbers in and we say, okay, we need another CT teacher at Legacy because of the demand. So there's some things that we still, because we're still real early on this, that we gotta work out. So you'll see this number kind of go up and down and change as we continue to go through the budget and work out a lot of these things. Yes, sir.
Brendan, does this include the money we're gonna owe the state?
This does not include, this is not the 2.7 that they're gonna say that
Okay.
when we get to the budget. So I didn't do that in last year's budget, but I know there's gonna be a settled up.
Okay.
Because to me, we got those extra funds last year, put them in fund balance, and so we're gonna get those back. So I don't wanna have that in that budget, because we actually got paid for this.
Is there like a date or a deadline where we would have to return that?
We never have to return it. What they do is
They
they
don't
pay
give
you
it to
just the next time they
Oh,
don't
that's
give
right,
you
you
the
told us about that last time, I'm
And
sorry.
then when do we see our final numbers for this year, the year that we're in? Like
ADA.
where we settle up?
Like, so we get those in March, so I have those already. So,
Okay.
like, I already know how much we got overpaid for next year.
No, I mean,
No.
when do we see the number from last year's budget, like all our expenditures?
At the end of August. So
At the end of August.
we close out this year's budget, we do all our expenditures, and then we come to you, we can say at the final meeting, it's like our final budget limit. Like, we're gonna be $3 million short, we need to put $3 million to our budget, because we're not allowed to have a deficit budget
Right.
with our auditors.
So then, last year, how far were we out in the
Last year, we
red?
put money in the fund balance. We put money in the fund balance every year.
Okay.
And we did that, not that we had a balanced budget, but we started moving things into ESSER. And we used ESSER to make sure that we covered our deficit, but also
Okay.
put some money in the fund balance because we know that we're not gonna have that safety net anymore with ESSER funds.
Mhm.
So we've been growing fund balance, to get to this point. Like this year, we have a few ESSER funds left. Next year, we won't have hardly any. By the end of next year, we won't have any ESSER funds.
Okay. So in August,
Of
you'll
this
be
year.
putting money probably into fund balance?
The only thing that I would say, I'm not too positive this year we will because of
Okay.
that $6.7 million deficit.
Okay.
That's the only thing, that's kind of really, I felt confident we would probably put money in fund balance if we didn't have, because come August, the state's gonna, they say they owe me an extra 17 million in August, they're gonna pay me 11,
Yeah.
or pay the district.
6.7 or 2.7?
6.7
For this
that's-
past year.
That was from past year. Going into next year, it's about 2.7. So
Okay.
we'll know more in August as we finalize all of the last payroll, all the final expenditures. And then I could come to the board and say, or Scott, this is where we're gonna land. We're gonna be 2 million short, or we're gonna be 2 million, hopefully. Always wanna put one in fund balance. But we need to finalize how many openings or, vacancies we didn't have, and then how many budgets didn't get spent, and then close out, pay all our bills, pay all our employees, and then I'll give us our final.
And then you would take money out of fund balance
Then we would come to y'all with a final
balance
budget
it.
amendment and say, hey, we're gonna be short 3 million, we're gonna pull it from fund balance. to cover.
Okay. And we'll know that before we adopt this?
Correct.
Okay.
So speaking of fund balance, next slide. So we are gonna always plan for the worst, and so we made the decision to, at this point, project out that we believe that we'll end the year with about 80 million in fund balance. Now, the district does have a fund balance policy in the board policy CE local, which states that you must have three months on hand. And so as you can see with this scenario, even with the current projected preliminary budget deficit of 6.5 million, would still be well within the 3-month projection. So we're covered in that regard. So I just wanted to put that screen up here for y'all to see. All right. Next slide. So we've had some additional,
Can you explain to Joe and James, Brandon, about our 3-month policy thing?
And so by board policy, the district is required to keep on 3 months worth of expenditures. So if, like during COVID, and when people started shutting down, and there was a chance that possibly the government weren't gonna work and they were gonna pay us what they owe us every month, we needed to have funds available to cover our monthly expenditures up to 3 months. So pay people, pay our invoices, run our district. So that's a requirement that we have in our board policy, and so we always need to have it set aside. So right now, if you look up there, we're roughly spending about $12 million a month as a district, and so we need about $36 million always in fund balance. And where this runs, where this plays a part is, it's a policy and it's required by the board, so our job is to make sure we keep that. But when we go out to sell bonds, they look at our policy, and then at the end of June, we're gonna have a credit rating. And so what that is, it's a call, these creditors call and they ask about our fiscal financials, and they're gonna question us on your fund balances. Why are you spending down fund balance? What does your fund balance look like? And we always get a good credit rating because of this, that we're fiduciary responsible with all our funds, but we are growing fund balance, and they don't wanna see a negative fund balance. But if we have good reasons on why we're spending fund balance, that's when we'll explain it. So we bought $5 million worth of property. That's why we spent fund balance. And they're like, okay. But what they don't want to see is that we need $10 million to pay our employees, because that becomes reoccurring. And so it's very important, really, for board policy, because if we ever had a shutdown, close to like we had a pandemic, is that we could still pay our employees and pay our invoices up to 3 months, and that's a requirement. You can see up there, we have at least 6 months worth of funds to run our district without any help collecting taxes or getting the state aid that we get. And so you always want to have a really strong fund balance. But also, on the other side of this, we also want to be able to do things good for our kids. So we don't want to just sit there, like, if we have to, that's why we use a lot of this on capital projects, doing good things like turfing we use ESSER for the turf, but like on the playgrounds, but we use these funds to enhance our buildings, do special things for our kids. And so that's where you'll see we'll come in and use these funds for the next. Where we don't want to get into is having these fund balance to operate our school district, because then that will start eating away over the years instead of going up.
Thank you.
and of course, child nutrition has the opposite. They can only have up to 3 months. That's for Winston in the room here. So I know he was thinking, hey. All right. So next slide, additional staff items for discussion. These are items that we're looking at adding to the budget. So at this point, we've seen our fund balance slide, we've seen the general fund slide, and so we just want to, these are the items that we'd like to add, and they come at a cost. So we are looking at trying to be a little bit more competitive with our principal and assistant principal pay scale by maybe creating their own pay scale, so we can kind of have a little bit more flexibility and then be a little more competitive in that campus administration. So, and there's a few other things on there. We've added some days to the support staff in order to, so they can be on hand during the registration process, so we can make sure we capture all the kids and do it smoothly as possible. So
The winter incentive option, is that what we've been doing 1,500 for?
This last year we did 1,500. At the end of this year, we're gonna have about 5 million left in ESSER 3. And so to do the 1,500, and so it costs the district, the ESSER funds 3.2 million to do the 1,500 at Christmas. And we're gonna do one coming up this month, it's gonna be another 3.2. So it roughly costs us 6.4 to do a 1,500 twice. We're not gonna have, and this will be strictly up to the board, because we do have ESSER funds, we're gonna have 5 million, and we're gonna set that aside to do a retention stipend. And we can work out how much we wanna give. We can do a big one and use ESSER possibly at Christmas, and then maybe use fund balance at spring. So those are things that we can still, as we get closer to adopting compensation, work out. Right now, we have 5 million set aside, and we think if we did 1,000 and 1,000 fall and spring, that we would have enough ESSER funds to do that.
And what if we did 15 and then 1?
Yeah, so if we did 15, we could probably use ESSER funds to do that. It'd be like 3.2, and then try to do one in the fall, in the spring. It would probably be, I'd have to do the calculation on what that would cost, probably 2.4.
So maybe we would have enough if we did 15 and 1,
Yeah,
almost?
possibly. If not, then we could probably supplement it with fund balance to finish up.
That might be an option, like doing more at Christmas and then a little less at summer.
Good.
all right. All right. And the next slide is a couple of new positions that have been added to the budget as well. The comprehensive high schools, that's Southwest High School and Legacy High School, have all received an additional counselor, one additional assistant principal, and one girls athletic coordinator. And then we've had some special ed additions, and these are paid out of the general fund, so that's why it's part of the general fund budget conversation that we're having. So you can see that's about 1.5 million added to the budget there. And as well, the pre-K pilot at Indian Creek, I believe y'all discussed that at the April board meeting, so that'll be another additional cost as well. So, all right.
These are all new positions, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so we did a study on, like, when we were doing staffing at the basic school model for the high schools. And we, after reviewing other districts, we felt like we were under staffing at the counselor and the principal level. And we studied it and looked at, okay, they got 2,000 students. What is the other districts that have that same number of students, how many assistant principals do they have? We had the lowest, so adding one, and the same thing with the counselors. And then adding a girl athletic coordinator at both schools. We don't have those positions, we feel like those are good positions to have to help with the girls athletic programs. And so a lot of districts have that, so and then the special ed department came out with, this is part of working with them and getting the numbers when we're doing staffing. These are positions that, based on their numbers, they would, forecasting next year, they would need to pull off some of the different classes they need at those different campuses.
All right. Now to the compensation part of our discussion. So pay and compensation drives the majority of the budget, as you all know. For our current 143 million in revenue, we are projecting that the compensation in the budget for personnel is about 82% of our budget, about of our revenue that we're going to be collecting. So it's pretty significant. So, all right, and we want to present with you guys 3 options. And then, of course, we're always open to suggestions, and we can change those options as they come open. So here we go. All right, before we start the options that we're going to present, I just wanted to kind of show where we were at last year at Southwest ISD. I believe we are very competitive. Now, when you look at this picture, you're like, wait a minute, we're in the middle, but not so fast. Remember, $3,000 were added to that, to each annual salary. So truly, Southwest ISD was right up at the top, right underneath Southside. So it's very competitive salaries, very, very good stuff moving forward. But of course, this will change because everybody's going to analyze what they need to do. For all the districts are already making their compensation plan plans of attack. San Antonio's announced theirs, Judson's announced theirs, and I believe Austin ISD's announced theirs. And a lot of the districts that are July 1st start date they'll start approving their compensation plans in the near future. So,
What did they announce?
so San Antonio ISD announced a huge, like 9% raise. It was, I believe they are also doing away with a lot of positions.
Yeah.
So they're kind of a.
Y'all heard one with Dina Valley down by any chance?
I talked to Jason, and they're thinking they're doing a 3%. Because their issue they're facing is they're having to add a lot of staff. So you're gonna have to spend a lot of money on additional staff, so they're trying to balance that. That is the group, for us, is looking at where Medina Valley and Northside is. That's really our main competitors right now for teacher salaries and trying to stay there. And we definitely wanna get higher on the scale when you look at overall Bear County, but when you're talking about where our people live and who are the districts that are attractive, and definitely Medina Valley and Northside. And so we always try to stay within, real close distance to both of those.
What did Northside hasn't announced?
They haven't announced it yet either.
What
We
did-
were all planning, but nobody's sharing.
Yeah.
And we were all thinking the state was gonna mandate it, right? We thought that, okay, because the way the state was rating their rules is, we're gonna give you an extra $6 million and 50% of that has to go to teacher pay, so now work it out. It depends on how much you got, then you had to come up with the formula. Then they were saying if you're under 20,000, you gotta give everybody $6,000 on the raise. Well, they didn't do anything, so now everybody, I think, is like us. Okay, current law, this is how we are, what can we build, and then provide y'all options to look at.
What did Judson announce?
So Judson did I believe a 3% raise with a bunch of incentives that are a little unique, I guess is a good term for that.
So what they also did was target the teachers that had more experience. So they got an additional lump sum of money once you go into 6 years or more.
Okay.
Now, our bonuses, do they go towards their retirement, TRA?
No.
They're not bonuses.
Is that good or,
One time
is that good or bad?
It depends if you're looking at it longevity-wise, it's bad. But employees like to have the cash up
On hand,
front and immediately. But long range, if you're looking at it for your retirement, it doesn't calculate for your retirement.
And I will share this with y'all because I think y'all seen it, and we brought it, but we have the TIA coming up. So we got it already approved. And so next year will be like our incubator year, but coming after next year, in the 24-25 school year, we're gonna have teachers gonna be able to make significant amount of money if they qualify. If they're high level, and they meet the qualifications, because we're all Title I schools and Article DIS, there's some significant amount of funds, which is gonna really help us be competitive to attract really high qualified teachers to be doing this. And so, we'll continue, because we have a lot of teachers, not every teacher's gonna get this,
Right.
try to be competitive, but we're gonna really see a big change for some of these teachers that we have that are high performing, get some significant amount of money. We're
But
talking about
Somerset
20,000.
kinda copied it on
Yeah,
that deal, didn't
Somerset
they?
had already
Yeah.
been doing it.
They already been doing it, or they copied what we were gonna do?
No,
They've been doing
they had
it.
been doing it, they had another plan before TIA, so they kinda just implemented it. But this is a big part of like us being out in front of this and getting that done so that we can really keep the really high qualified teachers that are performing at a high level. That'll be another tool belt that we'll have to help teachers, make significant amount of money.
Okay.
But please keep in mind that when Leslie came and she shared that, this does not include every teacher. So especially in the first year, special ed teachers are not included. So there's a large group of teachers that are not included in the TIA.
Yeah.
All right. So here's our scenarios. Scenario 1, we're looking at a 3% raise for the core employment group, teacher, nurse, librarian, counselors, and 3% for the professionals, and then 4% for the auxiliary, bus drivers, clerical, paraprofessionals. So scenario 2 is a 4% raise for the teachers, nurse, librarians, and counselors, 3% for professionals, and 4% for auxiliary, bus driver, clerical, and paras. And then scenario 3 is a 9% increase for the teachers, nurses, librarians, and counselors, and then 3% for professionals, 5% for auxiliary and bus drivers, and 4% for clerical and paras. And again, we can always adjust these percentages as you all see fit. But in the meantime, here we have it broken down by each scenario has the raise that would cost us for the raise. So if you'll look at scenario 1, the cost of this raise is $3.2 million. And then next to it, the cost of the scenario 2 raise is $4.2 million. And then the cost of the scenario 3 raise is $7.6 million. So, and you can see the effect that that has on the bottom line.
So that includes the 6
Yes.
million from the other slide?
Yes.
The deficit?
No, because that 6.9, oh yeah, so yes, I'm sorry, you're right.
That's
So
why
like,
it's-
we're in a $6.4 million deficit, and then adding the 3.2 gets you to 9 point.
Yeah.
Have we done different percentage, like, have we given teachers more than we give, auxiliary? I thought we always did the same.
No, we usually do our auxiliary and clerical, we always have at least one or
More,
1 or 2
right?
percent more.
Right, okay,
Yeah,
so we've
so-
never given them less.
No, the auxiliary clerical, we always, because we know those wages are
Yeah.
a lot lower, we usually do a 4 or 5 for them. Just depends on, you know, we get kind of direction and see where we're at. So the only thing is, scenario 3, is really based on the fact that we thought that we were probably gonna be required to do that, because
Okay.
9% is about $6,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we created that just so that you can see this, and, you know, if the board still wants to move forward with this, but that's just another scenario to show you. But we didn't put everybody else at 9 and 10%
Yeah.
on that scale. And you have to remember, I know it feels like a long time ago, but it really wasn't. But we moved everybody to $15, and we really adjusted that, our auxiliary and clerical scale. And so really, they got like a 10% raise. And I say they, it was the first 3 pay grades. We got to kind of fix those last pay grades, but we also think that now, because those wages are still not, I mean, they're lower wages, that we don't feel like we need to do something small for them. We still
Yeah,
probably should do
no,
a 4 or 5.
yeah.
So Scott still ran those numbers. because we're doing
I just
something
was
like that.
surprised by the scenario 3, how much less.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't afford to.
We
do
could run a
that.
scenario that everybody gets denied, but then
No.
that's significant, I mean,
Yeah.
we'll have to run that number and see what that looks like.
Yeah, because this is what it showed, the next 3 ones was what shows, what that moves us up to, right? So the base pay for a new teacher would go up from 58 to 62.9,
Correct.
so.
With which one?
The
scenario
last one,
three.
the
The
scenario
last
three.
one.
Y'all are stealing my thunder, man.
Sorry, Scott, keep going then.
Let's go. Let me run through this real
Yeah,
quick.
it's
All right,
just
let's get to it.
crazy.
Then. Let's get to it. All right, here's
Stop
here's
reading
scenario
ahead,
1
Daniel.
with the flat. It's basically it's a $2,000 raise. 3%. I calculated it based on a 20-year teacher, so that on the current pay scale. So the current 20-year teacher here at Southwest makes $65,172. So I took 3% and got 1,955, rounded it up to 2,000, and put the scale together. So that's what the teacher pay scale would look like. Please note that we also believe 58,000 should be the starting point for incoming teacher with no experience. So, and we've used that as a starting point on each one of these scenarios.
So this is not even including any retention that we would add.
Yeah.
Like if we do a 1,500, 1,000, that's another 2,500, then we
Yeah.
can mark it and say, this is what our new scale would be for this.
Have we ever asked our teachers which they prefer?
You know, I never really asked, but when we get calls and everyone.
I know they want both,
Yeah,
but
they like that 1,500 or whatever, even when we were doing 500 at Christmas, they were like, it's really good. And I think it really helps, not necessarily your teachers, but you know, your clerical and auxiliary staff, that it really helps them at those times. Especially now, like, people are going on break, summer vacations.
Having a nice mix, having a nice mix of an increase and a incentive is pretty. I think it's a good practice. And it seems to be incentives have been around now probably 10 years now, and it doesn't seem like they're going away. So
Yeah, we've done it for like 5 years straight, so
Yeah.
I don't know if we take them away, how the reaction would be.
yeah, kind of getting used to it. All right. So that's scenario 1. Scenario 2 is it's a $2,600 raise for teachers based on the last year's scale, starting out at 58,000 for a new teacher. And so this one was calculated based on the same 20-year teacher. So the 4% on that would be $2,606. I just kind of lowered it down to $2,600. Looking back, I don't know if I should have just raised it to $3,000 and been done with it, but here's the scale we have right now. So there we go. All right. Next one is the 9%, and that's the $6,000 one that we believe that the state was looking to dictate to the school districts of our size, so put that pay scale together for that, and so,
When they were gonna, they didn't dictate it, but when they were going to, were they gonna give us money for that?
They were in influx, so they, part of the deal was that they were going to change basic allotment, they were gonna
Okay.
give some funding. And then there was a 50% of that has to go towards teacher, librarians, and nurses. And then there was gonna be one of the legislation, like, if you're over 20,000, you just gotta get 50%, but if you're under 20,000 as far as population of students, you were gonna have 66,000 per teacher.
Okay.
So, I mean, that still could come. I mean, they could have a special session and go back to a special session and get this done. I just know that they ran into the voucher versus funding and they kind of just shut everything down.
Yeah.
So, we'll still wait and see. But we're, from all our consultants and everybody that's working in Austin is telling us to move forward with your budget like you, with current law, don't. And if they keep reiterating that, so it's like, they're telling us, like, don't anticipate it, just do what you normally would do.
Yeah, as far as a 9% on the other scale, the other slide you were showing us, I don't know that it's, fair to do a teacher 9% and then leave our support staff at 4 or 5, so, I mean, we would,
Well, we could run numbers with those, we have a team that runs those numbers, we
Yeah.
could run numbers with everybody getting
Well,
a
they're not gonna run them all at 9, no problem.
no, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
I know.
I don't think we can reasonably do
Well,
9
if
based on
this-
our budget, but,
If the state requires us to do it,
yeah,
and depending on the funds, we'd have to look at the funds we would get to see if we could do 9% for everybody.
yeah.
And still see if how the budget would end up. So we could, if they come back and say, hey, you need to give all your teachers, librarians 9%, we'll run a scenario where everybody get 9%, including clerical, auxiliary, just so you can see what that looks like.
What if we start our teachers at 60,000? Is that like a 5%?
Yeah, that's what we're looking at is,
So-
you were saying about rounding it up to 60 or to 3,000?
Well, that's kind of what we were looking at if
That
we
would-
do it at retention.
Yeah.
Like,
So I
getting
did-
58 and doing
Because
it
that would
at
put us at the top for year 1 and still competitive at year 6 and,
Just to share with you, we used to really, and I don't know, if this was directed from the board a couple years back, because we always were trying to be first at the starting of teacher pay. And then meeting with like our TSTA representatives, like, we kind of pivoted to trying to make our scale more, across the board
Yeah.
competitive instead of just being number one at teacher pay, because that's,
You train 'em
that's
as
just a
leads.
small number of our people that we hire, that are brand new, when we have, like 990 across. So that's kind of like where we kind of pivoted from, like, trying to be first in the top paying at new teachers versus like where are we at almost every different year.
We
So
were for a
that-
while, but that's because other districts were not giving raises. They were either giving stipends only, not stipends, but the retention incentives.
Yeah. We could take a look at it.
And then they decided to catch up.
And trying to get it to 60 and see what that looks like and see how, but we'll have to fix the rest of the scale so
Yeah.
that there's still compression, separation, and we can run it and see what that would cost.
So what we'd like to do is offer the $2,000 incentive or a version of that. And then you take that and you add it to the 58,000, now you're at 60 for a first year
Yeah.
teacher. So that's a pretty good deal. I mean, 60 grand right out of college, I mean, come on, that's a great deal right there. So, this is what ESSER would look like for us. We have about 5 million left, as Brandon mentioned earlier, based on 2,269 employees, about $4,538,000 would be the cost for that. Plus some subs, I believe we did that last year, so it would round up to 5 million. So that's where we'd like to spend the ESSER money. And then, yeah, so this is the summary of those 3 options. Is there one you'd like that we could modify for the next time,
Or we can look at a different scenario.
Yeah.
We can run different scenarios.
I mean, I like the middle one, the scenario 2, maybe making that first one 5, so where that starting is, but as long as it kind of like, that middle, like, it still showed that year 6, and next one we're still competitive, it would move that up,
Yeah.
where I think we were it would be around 2 or 3.
So, on the budget, if we did the middle one, if everything just worked out to the penny, and then next, August, or whenever you said you balanced the budget, then you would be taking 10,741,000 out of our fund balance.
Out of fund balance.
Mm-hmm.
And that, as a budget person, that will never happen.
Yeah.
We don't,
No, I know you don't, but
Yeah.
as far as
But
if we
we
were
give you
to
worst case
approve that
scenario.
budget,
Yes.
worst case,
yeah,
well, it could be even worse if the prices of everything just
correct.
skyrocket.
So, man, our jobs is to show you, line for line, our real budget of,
Yeah.
if we have it in the budget, like, we have, if we're staffing for it, then we need to have it in our budget. And if they hire it, they hire it, they don't, then it helps the budget, but we're not gonna like take it out and then hire it and
Yeah.
then, and not be truthful and transparent.
We were using big
So,
numbers
yes,
like that,
if
1 million.
we did that raise,
Start making a
and we
difference.
hired every position, and I had every department, and every campus spend every dollar of their general fund, we would need 10.7 out of fund balance to cover our deficit.
And
What
it's,
ab-
I'm sorry, Flo.
What about the following years? I mean, are we
Well,
gonna
it's,
be?
That's what-
it's
that's
gonna
what they're
have,
talking
it's,
about.
It's reoccurring.
Reoccurring.
Every year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that something that we normally do, the 4%, 3%, 5%? Like, that's how we spread it out normally?
Correct. So
Okay.
we usually do a little, because the professionals, so when you do a bigger rate, so you do a 3% for professionals, most of our professionals work a lot more days,
Yeah.
so their actual raise is bigger
Okay,
than, because of the amount of days they work. So we usually do like 1% less.
okay.
And then depending on where we are, we really had to do something big for auxiliary and clerical because we were like still at like $12 an hour.
Mhm.
So we've done that, and so we're usually doing 1 or 2% more than what the teachers are getting. And so we can still go back and look at the clerical and auxiliary, and if you want to increase that. That budget is a little bit more minimal than your teacher budget,
Yeah.
because the teachers, like there's 900 of them, and then you take the
Mhm.
professionals. We can run another scenario making that 6% if y'all would like to see it. It's really, just run a different scenario to see.
Well, I like, well, I mean, when you consider what 5% of their
Mhm.
salary is, it's not really that much.
Yeah.
But that includes $2,000 incentive.
So this right here is,
With
we're using ESSER, so it's not.
Oh, that's right, that's
Yeah,
not
so
in
we're gonna give everybody $2,000 or $2,500, whatever we have, and we could possibly still, it may be 50, if we want, if Dr. Ball wants, we still can do 15 and 15, but we'll have to use fund balance to cover our difference.
Yeah, because next
So-
year we won't have ESSER, so
Yeah,
we
we'll
won't
have $5
continue
million
doing
this
it.
year,
We'll
and
have
that'll cover
$15
about-
million
Yeah, that'll cover
deficit.
about the Christmas payment and about half of the spring payment.
Mhm.
And then we could use fund balance to cover the extra million that we might owe or whatever that difference will be. And so then we can still kind of do that. with
Does
a-
IDEA
with a
do
4%
incentive?
yes,
Does
sir.
IDEA do incentive?
Retention.
Yes, they do.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Most people have gone to incentives to kind of help because,
Right.
like you said, it's a reoccurring cost if you put it in their salary, because if you give somebody so much salary, we never
That's
take
who's
it
gonna be
back.
kicking her butt
So-
right there.
If the board is really leaning towards number 2, if that's what the board is really leaning towards, what I would like for the board just to think about a couple of things is, from what I have heard, is that Southwest ISD lost a tremendous amount of teachers last year. The way we're looking right now, teachers are leaving us, and not necessarily that they're leaving to
To other
other
districts.
districts, they're leaving the profession, they're leaving the profession. One thing to consider is looking at number 2 though, but going 5% all the way across. Because it's the teachers also that it's been a very hard to fill. We're not getting more teachers, they're not going into the profession, we have to keep them. So one thing that the team might want to consider is looking at 5% all the way across.
What
That's
is
what we
a
were saying.
tremendous amount of teachers? How many did we lose?
What I was told, over almost 150.
From last year to this year?
Mhm.
And that's everywhere, not just us.
Brand new with no certifications.
Yeah.
Brand new.
I never heard that number. I never heard that number.
Yeah, that's all I can.
I'm going to Medina Valley.
It's 15%.
No,
So
they're going to
that to me is.
They're going to other professions.
But
They're going
that's
to
everywhere.
IT, they're going to,
Yeah, they're
Well,
you
going.
know, making, my son.
Our district-
I mean, other districts, there's just a teacher shortage in general.
Yes, in general.
I had a 13 from
And-
my regional and 11.
No, I know that, but is it just because of money, or is it because of the pandemic and they didn't wanna be in the classroom and?
Like that mid-cycle, we are losing veteran, amazing teachers that have been in our system over 5 years.
And they're going where?
Because of money.
They're
That's why
going,
money.
but where are
Right.
they going?
Other
So,
professions.
I've heard Medina Valley, Northside, Northeast,
Because
Other
Medina
districts?
Valley pays a lot more at 5 years, or what?
Here's the middle one, we're.
Go back to that slide, that compares us, right there.
No, go back to the years.
That one, because in
The
5 years.
We had year 6, we're pretty much paying the same. Like, I mean, well,
Yeah, so why are they leaving at year 5 or 6? If,
we're paying more
yeah, that doesn't make
with
sense.
this, with the 3,000.
I think a lot of them are just leaving the profession, right?
And then we have that.
Yeah,
And yeah, they all got different reasons, or they're frustrated, or the school, or whatever.
I mean,
and
I
they just want
understand the
change
importance
things,
of
so.
giving a good raise, right? But then we also have to look at, the money. I mean,
Well,
a big, huge companies, they're not even giving raises, or they're giving 1% or 2%.
What we can do is we'll have scenario 2, which we already ran, we'll run scenario 3, which would be like a 5 across, like 5, 5, 5.
Yeah.
And give you the difference.
Okay.
In a nutshell.
So that,
We'll
so
give you
Yeah.
two different-
5%
Or
is
how
about-
about 5, 5, 6?
5 and a 6?
5, 5, 6.
5,
Fine.
how about 5, 4, 6?
Okay, we can do that. Absolutely.
That's good. That'll be about $3,300 for the teachers on the 5%. So that's good.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, we'll calculate it and run it in our system, see what.
Yeah, let's just see that. 'Cause, well, I mean, I don't know, we can't afford, in my opinion, we can't
More
afford
than
9%.
that.
Because
we
then
have to
that's gonna be
maintain.
9%, I mean,
Every-
and then we're
Every
gonna give
recurring.
another raise, and so,
Yes.
not saying that definitely teachers are definitely worth as much as we can pay them, but we also have to figure out how we're gonna pay them. That comes back to the ADA thing. We have to get,
Yeah.
there has to be, maybe
Yeah.
we offer an incentive to
Maybe.
schools that get their ADA up to 98%, you know what I mean? Like, maybe and they have to understand that that's how we're gonna be able to give raises, it's the
Maybe-
ADA.
Maybe
We
that
should
extra
run a contest
500,
or something, just so that they can.
that extra 500 for the school, if they get their AD up.
Mhm.
I mean, remember when we used to give bikes away for perfect attendance and all these things when our kids were in school, and then they're like, I can't miss school, I wouldn't get the
And I
bike."
think parents need to understand that, the amount of money
Yeah.
we lose when they don't send their kids to, I don't think they do, I
They
really
don't.
don't.
They don't.
I'm not sure that, that's really what parents want to hear. I think that we can definitely teach them that, but I think we should also go in the approach of what they miss out instructionally and the bigger gaps that happen and how their child won't be successful.
Combination.
True, too.
I-
Well, it has to be a combination of
Yeah.
both,
Yeah.
but I think if parents, okay, so parents, we always want better things for our schools. We want better facilities, we want better teachers, we want if we don't have the kids coming to school, we can't do it. So a combination of both, about what we lose financially and then also what their child lose instructionally.
I guess we just have to be very strategic on how it's laid out to them.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it's their money, I mean, they're paying taxes.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that are gonna want us, they're more interested about the events that the kids are missing,
Yeah.
like, they learn whatever.
Yeah, anyway, it's worth a shot.
Yeah.
All right, well, our last slide is kind of a timeline for the budget. We have a brown bag today, and then on the June 20th, we'll have our regular board meeting. It's a possibility we can adopt a compensation plan then, but
Yeah, I think that what we'll do is that we'll do an items information, bring out scenarios, and then see if the board is, and with Dr. Paul's president, the board is ready to, we'll put some recommendations together for the regular agenda. And if the board's ready, we'll move forward. If we're not ready, we wanna go back and relook at things, then we'll just probably pull that agenda. So we'll come back with some different scenarios. It's better for us to probably get in the market a little earlier, so that people know what we're doing, so that, as people are making decisions in June, it's usually the big time where people are deciding if they're leaving or going. And so having something in writing and ready to go in June would be really great. But if we're not ready, then we can bring it back in July.
Would this take place for this fiscal school year?
No, this would start, in September.
I know that, in talking to Brandon, I know it's a little different for the board because y'all are not, Southwest is not an a July 1st budget, but the last day for teachers to resign is in early July. So I think the importance of passing this compensation plan in June is before they have to make that decision, we want to try to keep them here. Because everybody else is announcing early, there's always people talking, oh, you're not gonna give a raise, or you are, and how much compared to so-and-so. So we did it in June, hopefully we would maximize all the teachers
We've
that
always
stick.
done
Is
it
everybody on
this
board with the
way.
4-4-5? Work on that and bring it to us, let's do it, let's roll.
I like the 5,
Oh,
4,
yeah.
5, 4,
5, 4, 6.
6.
Okay,
That's
we'll
what
bring
I-
out both as.
5, 4, 6.
So we'll do an items information, we'll show you all both, and then we'll give you 2 options on the agenda.
Yeah, let's move on it, that we get it done, we don't
And-
lose our teachers.
And let's
guys.
do
Roll.
a 5 all the way across
retention-
also.
Okay.
As far as the incentive, I
The
agree with
reason I
Mrs.
say
Dolphin
5,
about
6
Yeah, I know.
1,500 for
because
Christmas
then
time.
the auxiliary feels more.
Bring all that.
So 15 at Christmas and 1,000 in spring.
So just to make sure I heard all the options that the board wants us to bring, 5, 4, 6, right?
Yes.
And then 5, 5, 5, 5 all the way across?
5, 5, 5, all the way across.
Okay, I think.
No,
5,
no,
4, 6.
she's asking all the different options.
Oh, I
Let's
want
do a
5,
5
4,
and 5, 5, 4, 6, and
Let's keep it simple with 2 of them, what do y'all like? Let's do it.
Well, I say 5, 4, 6.
5, 4, 6, me
Okay.
too.
I'll say 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, no, that's.
4, 4, 4, 4, 6.
Okay, so just 5, 4, 6, and then 5 all the way across.
And the
And then
1,500.
leaving it 1,500 in Christmas and
Yes.
1,000, okay.
I
If it's
think
only
15 and
2,500
1.
Yeah, if it's only 2,500, 15 at Christmas.
yeah, because we need to see that, because even though we're going to use ESSER this year, we won't have ESSER next year.
Do they understand that the teachers that were using ESSER for those incentives, the
We-
retention?
I know the
They
team
don't
has
They
told
don't
them.
care.
They don't care.
They
I know
don't
they don't care, but.
They
just want their money.
But we're gonna run out of money is the
Yeah.
thing, yeah.
Yeah.
If the state don't fund, flow,
Thank
we're in
you.
trouble anyway,
Thank
so it
you,
don't matter.
Scott.
All right.
Yeah, I know, that's for sure.
But I do want us to consider in the budget process, what somebody suggested, is giving some funds to the campus to say, when you meet your attendance goal,
Yeah.
you get, I don't know, an extra 1,500, 2,000 to
Right.
use to buy
Pizza
a.
party.
Well,
No.
a pizza, but I was thinking
Yeah.
like maybe
Oh,
a
pizza
laminator
party
or
is a-
some more supplies or some
Yeah.
equipment or something.
Well, I was thinking pay.
Oh,
An incentive.
I was thinking pay, like each person on campus would get
Oh, an
500
additional
bucks.
incentive.
That's what I'm thinking.
Oh,
I think
okay.
people would really work hard to increase their, and the teachers would.
well, that's even better. That's
Teacher
even
would-
But
better.
that's what I'm thinking, not everybody. I mean, I don't know.
Generate the money?
Well,
I don't
we
care
need
what
to
you
see
give,
what it
as
would
long as
cost.
you give
Well,
something.
because, but then they would have been generating the money, right? Their
So maybe
ADA would have
everybody
been
on that
generating-
campus gets something now?
That's what I, what do you?
Starbucks gift card.
I'm thinking
Let
maybe,
me run some numbers on that.
Even if it's just 300 or something, you know?
I'm thinking maybe a parent from Mill Creek that had their daughter attendance get extra money.
No,
just-
no, we can't be giving them.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on, because we're running,
Okay.
it's 1 o'clock. C, Resilient School Support Program Update. Dr. Ball, who has that?
We're bringing to the board our yearly update with Education, who has been our partner since pandemic and post-pandemic. And so our goal has been to continue to support the schools with needs and also continue to launch work that will continue to close the gaps that we experienced during pandemic. So with us, we do have Sonia and Alyssa, who have been a tremendous asset and being part of our team. But they're gonna be the ones that are gonna be sharing with us our updates.
I guess they're going to be online?
Everyone, can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Well, hello and good afternoon. Hopefully you all can see my slides that I am sharing. Is that projected there?
Yes.
Great. Good afternoon. My name is Sonia Soltani and I'm a school improvement specialist with Ed Direction. I'm really delighted to be here with you all and hope everyone's wrapping up the school year with ease. For those of you who don't know us, Ed Direction partners with school systems across the country to improve teaching and learning. Specifically, we've partnered with the Texas Education Agency to provide learning acceleration supports to school districts through a program called the Resilient School Support Program, or RSSP. Additionally, Southwest ISD has received a Strong Foundations grant to further accelerate student learning, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks and sounds like in this presentation as well. So our primary objectives for today are to just get an overview of the Resilient School Support Program, review a little bit of our outcomes, and then talk about our Strong Foundations grant and literacy framework that we're rolling out. Starting first with the Resilient School Support Program. So what you're seeing here is the what, why, and how of the program. The outcome of our partnership through RSSP is, as I mentioned earlier, to accelerate learning in grades and subject areas that are of the highest need at your district. So together with an RSSP team cabinet, we've analyzed data and created a plan that identified for this last year a specific strategy to accelerate student learning at certain prioritized campuses, content areas, and grade levels. So we've prioritized at this district instructional and leadership coaching on instructional strategies, professional learning, and data progress monitoring. We'll talk a little bit more and get into more detail about what that looks and sounds like as well. So this is the process that we take through the Resilient School Support Program. What we're talking about today is the outcomes, right, in the end of our year 3 RSSP program. But as a note, we are just now beginning to launch into year 4. So this process that I'm mentioning to you right now is to describe the process we took in this last school year. Also know that we're taking this exact same process launching into next school year as well. So I'm giving this presentation at a rather unique time where we're making the transition from year 3 to year 4 in the program. Through the program, we began by establishing a team. That's our RSSP cabinet is what we call that. We narrowed our focus, and we'll talk about the grade levels and campuses and subject areas that we identified and focused on this last year. And then we set a measurement plan, and at multiple points throughout the year, we have stopped to progress monitor using data, student data and implementation data to see how our outcomes and our goals are shaping up. That's that analyzing data piece that you see up here in turquoise. Below that, you'll see that we set some strong visions and goals for the school year, and then build an implementation plan around those vision and goals. So let's get into a little bit more of the details here of what we focused on. As always, we want to ground our work in the core instructional framework, which includes those evidence-based instructional strategies that we see teachers using effectively in the classroom. That includes teacher clarity, scaffolding, small group learning, questioning, opportunities to respond, and feedback. Grounding our work in this core instructional framework, we then created our goals. So as a note here, the RSSP program is split into 2 cycles, cycle 1 and cycle 2. What you're viewing here is Southwest ISD's goals for cycle 1. That would be from June 2022 to about December 2022. And our focus this last school year was to hyper intensively work with the school leaders and teachers at Hidden Cove STEAM Academy, Indian Creek Elementary, Resnick Middle School, and McAuliffe Middle School. Each school set what we call a wildly important goal, and that's what you're seeing here in the green on the left. I'm sure it looks really small from where you're at, but just know that they're extremely detailed and data oriented. These goals reflect the academic improvement that we're hoping to see for students in this last year at these campuses. On the right, you'll find implementation goals that we set for the first half of the year up through last December. And we call these our capacity and fidelity goals. And so these are what we're doing internally, right, to ensure that these student outcomes goals are going to be met. At 4 key moments in the school year, we've taken pause to analyze student outcomes data and adjust our course along the way. And that leads us to cycle 2. So for cycle 2, or the second half of the year, the wildly important goals, as I mentioned earlier in the green, those stay the same. And you can see that many of them are based off of STAR. We don't have that data quite yet, right? So we're not able to measure this, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a second. But our wildly important goals still stay the same in cycle 2, or the second half of the year. And it's just our capacity and fidelity goals, or our internal human capacity goals that changed. So we can stay responsive to the data and the needs of each campus. To give you an example here, and in case you're not able to see it on the screen, our capacity goal for this last cycle was to ensure that 100% of focus school leaders, so those four focus schools that I mentioned, also listed here on the left of the slide, have received supplementary trainings on at least one of the core instructional framework strategies. So not only have teachers received trainings year-long from us at Direction on the core instructional framework strategies, but also school leaders have been receiving trainings, supplemental trainings as well. In addition to that, we engaged with the curriculum and instruction team to track observations, so walkthroughs of classrooms, and then the ability to provide school leaders with some high-level core instructional framework trends and feedback has been a pivotal part of our work in this last cycle. So zooming in just to this last cycle, what have our outcomes been so far? What you're viewing here is a summary slide of the end of cycle 2, which is the cycle we just concluded, and these are our results. The goals are on the left, and the data we utilized is in the middle. So we used our leadership coaching agendas to measure those supplemental trainings. We used the curriculum and instruction walkthrough tracker to track the amount of times that walkthroughs were happening. And then we tracked student outcomes goals. The key thing to note here is we actually used M-class data to measure end of year outcome goals, and we weren't really able to assess progress towards those student outcomes wildly important goals you saw in the green boxes on the previous slide, mainly because those goals are based off of STAR, and the late release of STAR results, which come out in about September, we're not able to assess the progress for that until those get released. So right now we just took a look at kindergarten to third grade ELAR data using M-class. And I'm sure once again that it looks very small for you there, but we have some at or above benchmark on M-class data points listed here for the 2 focus schools that are in K to 3. So that would be Hidden Cove STEAM Academy and Indian Creek Elementary. Now this is just a quick overview. As always, we do have much more data we could dig into, but seeing as how this is a quick informative session and an update on what the work is we have done to date, I want to tell you a little bit about what we've done along the way to help and support these goals, both implementation and student outcomes. The year 3 work that we have implemented worked on together is not exhaustive. You'll see a lot of just snapshots of slide decks and different pieces of professional developments we've led throughout the year here, but there's so much more that's not listed. I just really want to shout out the RSSP cabinet team for all of the hard work and dedication that they poured in throughout the year, because what is not seen here or put in an image here is exactly how much on the ground work has been happening in order to see these dreams be realized and these goals be realized. So throughout the year, Ed Direction, in partnership with Southwest leaders, led professional development for instructional coaches on Get Better Faster. We did some train the trainer sessions on the core instructional framework so that instructional leaders could go back to their campuses and lead those trainings for their teachers as well. We visited the 4 focus campuses multiple times throughout the year, did walkthroughs, and then discussed trends we noticed with school and district leaders. And we helped to revise the walkthrough forms and come up with the look-fors for each of the high-yield strategies that are listed in the core instructional framework. And finally, something that you heard me allude to before is the ongoing leadership coaching that we've been providing to focus school leaders at those 4 campuses that I mentioned, where they receive supplemental training and one-to-one coaching and support for their leadership and student outcome goals throughout the year. So as I mentioned, not exhaustive. There's still a lot more that I wasn't able to fit on this one slide here, but there's a lot of celebration and a big shout out that I want to give to the whole team that's been working with us. So here, this is just a quick snapshot of data. You can see that we met this goal around providing supplementary trainings to focus school leaders. So these are all just little artifacts and snapshots of the trainings that they received. And in addition, we have a lot of excitement built up around being able to dip into that STAR data once it gets released. Okay, so that was part 1 of our presentation on the Resilient School Support Program. I'm about to move into part 2, which is an informational overview of the Strong Foundations grant that Southwest ISD has received. I'll let you know that I have reserved time at the end for questions in case there is time available on your agenda for that. So part 2 is our Strong Foundations grant. This is separate from the Resilient School Support Program. However, we have worked hard in our rollout and implementation to ensure that they are synergizing together the program and the grant, and that we are streamlining efforts as much as possible. There are 3 primary objectives for the Strong Foundations grant, and that's change management on the campuses and in the district, basically moving towards research-based instructional practices, stakeholder engagement to make sure that we're hearing the perspectives and including the commitment and perspectives from everyone involved in this change, right? A change in instructional practice or expectations about the rigor of what's happening in the classroom. And finally, the creation of, in this case, a literacy vision and framework. Right now, we're identifying the plan for instructional alignment using a crosswalk from the core instructional framework to the research-based instructional strategies. So we're building a framework and a crosswalk amongst those so that we can use a common language for teachers and maintain continuity with the initiatives and strategies you all are using. And we're also moving towards the adoption and utilization of the framework that's been built. So what's the process been for Strong Foundations? It's a 5-step process, essentially. And the first step is just to build a roadmap, create a leadership team, plan out our processes, and collect some data. Our second step was to create a communication plan and talk about which group of stakeholders would be most meaningful to share this information with, to communicate to throughout this process, and to get input from as well. Step 3 moves us towards a collective learning series, which basically means teachers, school leaders, any instructional leaders who are selected in this process are able to engage in a series of workshops or PDs on the research-based instructional strategies. In this case, again, we're building that bridge with the core instructional framework, so it would be paired with that as well. Step 4 is developing our literacy framework and then beginning to implement that framework. So this is kind of we went through the what and the how very quickly for the Strong Foundations process. And let's get a little bit more granular here and see who's on our team. The project engagement from the Strong Foundations grant is a team of really amazing individuals who are so dedicated to teachers and students in their community. We want to give a big thank you to all of the people who participated in this process. The committee was extremely engaged and thoughtful throughout the process. We selected basically a representative group with various roles at various campuses to make sure that we factored in many diverse perspectives. And some of those folks are listed here on the leadership team and in the committee. The communication and the engagement piece was a very important piece to us, and it was there. So the final framework consists of a vision statement, of which we've iterated on and collaborated on in the creation of this framework. The vision statement is listed here at the top. We also created shared beliefs and key stakeholder actions to bring those vision and beliefs to life. Some key things to know here are that our work is rooted in research-based best practices and how to best teach students to read. Some of those key ideas include foundational skills in kindergarten through 2nd grade, essentially meaning that we're directly teaching phonics instruction in a routine way. Vertical and horizontal coherence, so aligning across grades and content areas so that there's intentional progression and student expectations are similar, and using high quality instructional materials. So realizing that this can't all be adopted all at once, but we're moving in this direction over time. Okay, so let's put this all together into a visual, right? This is a visual that we created to match the instructional framework that the district had previously adopted. And so you can see that we're talking about excellent and equitable outcomes for students in all of these different areas: reading, writing, speaking, listening, thinking, and literacy, and ensuring that students are able to achieve their full potential using these pillars or levers, right? The science of teaching reading, high quality instructional materials, alignment across grades, and alignment across contents. So with this visual, with the vision, the shared beliefs, our mission, and this literacy framework, where are we going? In our next steps, we are essentially moving towards ongoing implementation. So it just explains how the most important aspects of implementation plan will be carried out throughout the next year. We did those first 5 steps that I mentioned earlier in the presentations. We've prepared to implement the framework, and now as the school year commences, we're going to start iterating and taking action on that implementation plan. And that is it. So today we received an overview on the Resilient School Support Program and our partnership and outcomes throughout this last year. And also know that we have a big celebration and eyes towards this upcoming year together in partnership again. And then you also received an overview of the Strong Foundations grant. Do you have any questions for me if there is time on your agenda?
Anyone have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you.
Do you want to add anything, Delina?
No, I just want to say that within these 20 slides, the work looks complex, but it has been amazing to work with our EdDirection partnership. We're trying to make the work simple for whenever it gets delivered to the teachers. It's not like all these slides and details of the work, but this is where we go back to that instructional framework. That although we're creating a literacy framework that is so needed, in kinder they have to learn how to read, in first grade, that at the end, we're looking at the big circle, the big green circle that has been introduced 3 years ago. So we're trying to just go back and just hammer that work down, making sure that every single teacher understands that work, from the leadership all the way to the classrooms. And so that's the circle that is our foundation of the work. But it has been amazing to work with this group. We were on a call on March of 2020 with a commissioner. So this grant does come with other resources. There's some resources that we have opted not to use. This way we don't burden the teachers with more programs and software. So we're being mindful of our teachers and not wanting to fill their plate with more for them to manage. But that's about it. Thank you. Thank you, Sonia.
Okay. Item D, safety and security update.
Yes, sir.
Coach?
The end of the school year has come to its final days, and yesterday, Mark led a group of our safety and security committee, looking at different things and researching some possibilities for next school year in the area of safety. One thing that we want to point out is that there was some legislation put out there in regards to school safety. Mark and myself and the team of folks are going to really start to dive deep into those changes that are coming. And so I think that the next board meeting, we may need to bring an update on that piece, on possible legislation and the impact it has on next school year. Mark's going to kind of briefly talk about a little bit about this year and then kind of some items for just discussion that the safety committee is looking at, and also Mark's team and the safety group. So, Mark.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. So yesterday evening we had our required Safety and Security Committee meeting that we're scheduled to have in the summer. More than likely we're going to have 1 or 2 more to kind of to review some of these safety measures that we began discussing. At our meeting we reviewed the required safety drills from our second safety week, which we had in February. So all of our campuses are required to conduct the monthly fire drills. And then we have these other drills: reverse evacuation, secure, lockdown, shelter for hazmat, which is once a year, and then the hold. So the majority of these drills are only required once a year, but we do it twice a year. So in the event we have new staff, or we also have new students that come in. So we've been utilizing the standard response protocol from the I Love You Guys Foundation. We're now going into our 6th year with that. So we've been ahead of the curve. It's now being pushed out by the Texas School Safety Center, which oversees all K through 12 and junior college safety and security compliance issues and recommendations and any types of trainings that they push out as well. So you've probably seen these banners. We also have this information available on our safety hub that's on our district website, along with other information, what parents need to bring when they visit a campus, contractors, all of that's available on our district website. So we discussed two grants that we received. One was a Silent Panic Alert Technology Grant called the SPAT Grant. We were awarded $34,000, and it's really to cover basically 1 year looking for technologies that will allow our campuses, our staff, to directly contact 911. Right now, we do not have phones in every campus, although our staff does have phones in every classroom, I should say. We are looking at that as a potential solution. We are, and most of our staff also has cell phones, but because of connectivity issues within the building, once you get into the far interior part, some of those connectivity issues are get into play where they can't access those apps. So we have a couple of apps that we've moved to. One is the Navigate 360 Emergency Management app. That sends alerts if there's a drill or if there's a true emergency, kind of like we had down Old Pearsall Road just this other day. We'll send notification to all of the district employees that are impacted by it. Our police department gets that, district officials also get those notifications. So we're looking at something that'll go directly to 911. So we researched several different solutions, and there is one that's actually being utilized right now by both Bexar County Sheriff's Office and San Antonio Fire Department, and that is called LifeSpot. They actually had a story of that with the SWAT team from San Antonio Police Department utilizing that for SAISD. We've actually, as part of our group, our Safety and Security Committee group, we have representation from the Sheriff's Office, and they spoke a little bit about that last night in terms of how they utilize it for different sites. And when they get it, the whole cavalry is going to respond. The benefit of this technology is it provides GPS within the building of where exactly that alert is, or that issue is coming from. So that's one thing that we've already have them under contract for year one with the Silent Panic Alert technology. Again, that's just for 1 year. The other grant that we're looking to also continue to fund that is the School Standards Formula Grant. That allows for us to continue with those technologies. But in terms of other things we're looking at to harden our campuses, we're going to continue to upgrade our fencing. We've done that even prior to us receiving these grants. We're looking to change our chain link fencing to non-scalable wrought iron fencing. That's actually what's been recommended by the state for some time, and our facilities and maintenance and Mr. Kruger and his guys have done a great job of moving forward on that. We still have about six to seven campuses that we need to outfit. We're also looking at providing this fencing around other areas that may not be within a school perimeter fencing, such as the ag building out at the high school, CTE building, and such as that. So what happens for those other areas that do not have the fencing? We're looking at forced entry resistant film, safety film. Now, it is not bulletproof. There's a difference. It allows us to create time barriers for someone to go hide, someone to secure themselves and others. There are several solutions out there. The most common one is that they place the 3M security film within the interior part of the glass, and that allows about a 2-minute window before the glass is shattered. Similar to what you folks saw in Nashville when they had the active shooter basically came in through one of the doors, shot it, and was able to gain entry. This buys us about 2 minutes of time for anybody that's in that facility. There is another solution that we're looking at, one that allows the film on both sides and also an additional glazing on both sides that buys us 6 minutes of time. So that's one of the things that we're looking at, and we've been vetting different vendors, and we're looking roughly about $500,000, $550,000 of that to outfit all of our campuses. Those are just our instructional sites. So we're looking at windows in which someone can gain entry. Doorways, the little windows around the doorways, any classrooms that might have bigger windows, libraries. Bob Hope example was they have the cafeteria that has that glass. So those are solutions that we're looking at right now, working with facilities and maintenance, working with other vendors such as the Waterboy graphics that we've used for outside of our exterior entry points. That's one of the vendors we're looking at, and we're also looking at another vendor that we've originally did some bulletproof, the resistant security vestibule projects with in the past.
Have we looked at the cost of just putting bulletproof windows?
We have not, but based on the price of what we did for the vestibules themselves, just the little lobby areas, it's pretty costly because you're actually adding additional glass blocks to add that. So we have not. One of the reasons is, you know, it's been a budgetary issue. So now that we have this funding, we can at least move forward with the safety film.
Is that something that, I mean, I know that our bond was for safety. Is that something we could consider
We
taking
can
out
consider,
of
we can
bond?
get price, probably, we can price it, see what
Yeah,
it. at the
like
end-
how much it costs to put the film and whatever that's involved there, and then how much it costs to at least start doing, like the more vulnerable schools, like if, like you said, one has glass all in the cafeteria.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, maybe we start,
Start
if,
getting-
and if we can use bond funds for it, then,
The bond funds are exactly put aside for either one of
Yeah.
these solutions.
so maybe just give us a cost on what, you know, what that would cost.
Okay. Any questions on either one of these grants? Okay. And we'll follow back up with another item of information on where we're at now. For those of you who are new, when we have any type of audits, any type of grants that are received, we typically run that through our Safety and Security Committee. So as part of our committee, we have Mr. Vasquez, Ms. Bernal, and we have Mr. Diaz that have joined that group. So we have to have 3 board members, including the president, as part of that group. So we meet, I want to say we meet quarterly, but depending on the nature or the need. That group will then make recommendations and bring it to you folks for either certification or for approval.
So I just wanna, there was a couple of things when we, ourselves, we know that the bulletproof glass is a lot heavier. So when we did our vestibules, and we ended up having to change out all the doors.
Okay.
So we'll look at it, and it's not gonna be you just don't take a paint out and put this in. You almost have to reinforce
Just
the
support.
frames and the doors, and possibly have to add new doors, especially in our older buildings.
Okay.
So that's where the kind of the cost really was in. The glass itself is expensive, but when we went around and did all our vestibules and we put bulletproof glass in front of cast, we ended up changing all those doors and had to reinforce the frames because of the size and the weight of those, that glass.
Yeah, just so we have an idea.
And just so you know, the exterior doors at our elementaries, we probably have about 12 different entry points. Middle schools, we're looking at about 20 or so. And then the high schools can have anywhere up to, I think Legacy has like 80 different entry points, so just for dollar figures. So the other thing that we discussed yesterday was looking at the option to move towards clear and see-through backpacks. I know that's something that's picked up steam nationwide. That's in soliciting feedback from the principals. They have all approved to move forward with it, just so we have that starting point. They're all fine with it. In fact, some of them wanted to go with no backpacks, but, you know, based on the need. So we're looking at doing some more research on that policy, looking at how it was implemented in other campuses. We know that Northeast went to that policy a few years back, but I think they've since kind of come back on that. I know some of the problems that come up is the durability of some of these bags. But that's one of the things that we talked about, that the principals wanted us to look at moving forward. We're also looking at clear totes and bags for athletic venues, and that's something that's actually been in place in several districts for some time. Of course, that would allow restrictions on purses, diaper bags, and all of that. So we're still doing some additional research, working with Coach Wagner and Mel Henson on coming up with some additional information on that. Now, if we were to go to that at our stadium events, really we would be looking at just the high schools, the high school areas, which would have a larger amount of people. One of the things that Ms. Bernal recommended is reaching out to the parents to maybe get some feedback on what their feelings are. I know it's a little bit tricky, and she raised a good point, is parents are probably all going to say yes, 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 but there's some obstacles that come into play, the availability of the backpacks, cost of having to replace them from time to time. Right now, the backpacks range in price from $10 for about the elementary size, at least from the vendors that we're looking at, and to about $31 for the larger ones.
Even if you have a clear backpack, can't you just put another bag inside the clear backpack? Or can't you wrap up the thing in your t-shirt? I mean,
Or
are
your
we gonna
body.
go through the backpacks, or, I mean, I don't know, I think if I wanted to take something into the school, I would just roll it up in my T-shirt. You know what I mean?
There was
I
a lot
don't
of
know-
issues that came back.
I don't know that, I guess it would make us feel somewhat safer, but I don't know how efficient that is. I don't know.
I think, Marcus, what yesterday with the committee is to, we know that Northeast went to declare a backpack, and we are under the understanding they went away from it. So
Yeah.
us reaching out to them and finding out, okay, what were the pros and cons, and why
Yeah.
did y'all change y'all's mindset on having clear backpacks?
Yeah.
It's not state mandated, it's just, we've had some incidences
Mhm.
this year that, with backpacks, and I know it's alarming for some of our principals, and, yeah, we're just gonna, it's just a topic, research,
Yeah.
and having a discussion, and looking into it, making sure we're vetting it, see
Yeah.
if it is an effective use of, some kind of, safety tool going to this instead of having people backpacks. So
And
really,
so-
it's just more about.
And
doing
it
the
serves
research.
more as a deterrent, to discourage, anybody from bringing it now. Could they hide it? Absolutely, they could hide it. I mean, girls could put it in a little clutch bag too.
Yeah.
I mean, some of that's happened. I'd say some of the bigger issues that we have too are the vaping. I mean, that's an
Yeah.
ongoing issue that, to the point where we're seeing it at some of our elementaries. It's gotten down to that level. So we're looking at other solutions on that as well.
They also brought up the fact that if they do clear backs at stadiums, a lot of the kids stay after school
Yeah.
with their backpacks or their athletic bags, and then they'd have to leave them outside and someone can steal them, and we can run into a whole bunch of problems there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, about the kids that stay after school for the events, and a lot, I mean, we have a lot, right, cause they don't have transportation. So that would be another, we just don't want, we wanna be careful of doing a blanket rule, like we did at the end of summer, or end of the school year, saying no backpacks, and then we had all the special needs parents like, hey, well, I gotta take, my son has to take his thing, and then they're taking HEB, at McNair, they were taking HEB bags with their
Mhm.
stuff, it's all torn, I mean, I just don't wanna make a policy and then we're like, oops, we didn't think about that part.
That's why they're gonna research why Northeast used
Yeah.
them and then did away with them. And also, he was saying that kids would be allowed a small bag for, things that they need, like, the girls,
Mhm.
to put stuff in there that other people can't see, but like you say, if they can have a bag in there, they can put anything else in a bag.
And how many parents do you have on that committee?
We have 3.
What did they say?
They raised some questions,
Okay.
they concerned now, is this something that we're going to do for staff as well? Just to kind of be role models.
Yeah,
That's something to consider.
Okay.
I know that when they went to the bags at Northeast, they didn't require it of staff, it was just the students at
Yeah.
the time.
okay,
Other things that came up, and these were requests from principals, what are things we can think of? They looked at changing the dress code, they looked at, other things to kind of limit the size of the backpacks. They don't really utilize lockers anymore, other than the athletics or the fine arts, so that's kind of dissuaded a lot of students. But they do carry backpacks from class to class.
they
and a lot of what we give them is already electronic, so there's textbooks are really not given, with the exception of the dual credit classes. And everything is usually within that Chromebook or the Google Classroom. So, speaking of Google Classroom, one of the things that we wanted to look at, and Dr. Ball actually asked us to look into this, is there's some programs out there that help to monitor our traffic on Google Classroom. When the students log in, even in their account, but at home, that allows us to look for red flag statements, photos, what have you. There's a couple of vendors we looked at. We looked at GoGuardian, which is what our teachers already use to monitor what the students are doing on there. They can pull up any student to monitor what they're actually looking at. But this other program with GoGuardian as well as Gaggle, it's similar to Google, but it's called Gaggle. They monitor it live, and then any red flags that come up, either through emails, photos, anything that's inappropriate, they send that information directly to the district team. Kind of like our See Something, Say Something, that goes to RPD, it goes to myself, it goes to Pupil Services, so that way we can then work with the campus to try to vet it and determine whether that's a true threat or not. That's something that we are monitoring right now. That may end up coming to you either in June or July at the board meeting, but I did want to let you, make you aware that's one of the solutions we're also looking at. So the last thing we covered was our safety and security audit findings. Now, we're required to do these every 3 years, going back to 2005 with Senate Bill 11. The findings, then, once you folks certify it at the board level, then I submit the results to the Texas School Safety Center. That has to be done by August 1st. We have 19 instructional sites and 11 non-instructional sites, transportation, technology, building, what have you. We're required to follow the district audit report, and that audit report has over 500 safety and security items. They also look at interviews, they look at the robustness of our cameras, our websites, and then they make the recommendations based on what they found. And just to kind of give you figures, and they'll give more detail when they give the results to you guys in closed session in June, later this month, is that all of our campuses scored 90 percentile or better. So there's been a huge improvement over the past few years. And we do have some of our non-instructional campuses that our non-instructional sites that we really need to focus in on standard visitor policy, also conducting the drills. A lot of times we don't take part in fire drills and evacuations, but that's something we really need to start doing. We do have a couple of non-instructional sites that do that, but we really need to do that across the board. So, any
Thank you.
questions?
Questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm about to fill up that deal with safety, knowing that we've had this rain lately and a lot of lightning that we've had. And I know I deal with you hands-on, especially when it comes to a football game. What are we gonna do with the students' evacuation, whatever, get them at procedures. Aquatic Center, they do a really good job, 10-mile radius lightning, they have a lightning meter, they get them out of the water, they do dry calisthenics, whatever. Last week I was coming home, it was 6 o'clock when we had that really bad storm that just came right through our area. Really bad, got them out of the water, did our due diligence going home. Coming through the district going home, we had a baseball team on the pony field. Now, we're in charge of them or not, but they're still on the district campus. I called LT, Lieutenant Alvarez, hey, is there anything we can do? I don't know if we can get them off. And mind you, this cell was still, the lightning, I have a lightning meter on my phone, and it was within 3 miles lightning. And he said, he goes, they usually give us a hard time when we talk to them about it, but I'll send somebody out there. So he sent somebody out there, went, talked to the coach, all the parents, and the coach were in compliance. We want to practice. We're fine with them. Don't worry about it.
They're holding the lightning rod.
Yeah.
What
is,
We dictate if they use our fields during, especially when there is a weather and it's like raining.
Unsafe conditions.
We can meet with their commissioner.
Their president.
And discuss this, because, yeah.
I mean, that was their
safety-
feedback, yeah.
We have an alert system now that we purchased that's at our stadiums, and if
Yes.
that goes off, it's gonna be, we'll put in our contract with them, and it's for everybody, including students, even if they're not from our district. And then we'll work with those people that are not compliant,
Okay.
because if they can't follow our rules, then they don't get to use our field.
I mean, you know how I'm affiliated with, I mean, as far as seeing this over the years, me being a pony league coach and umpire, hey,
Safety should be.
yeah, safety.
Yeah, we can definitely meet with President. and,
I always
bring
take the
up
kids off as soon as they got
these
close.
concerns.
So, as you brought up kind of the lightning plan, we do have that, as you know, we work with it over when you have the football stadium, so at each of our stadiums, we do utilize different areas if we need to pull in the students, so we're really responsible for the participating teams and the referees, but we also bring in our students in that event, and we had that incident happen probably about 7 or 8 years ago, where we had to use the Castile gym. So,
I
we have
guess
those
it's something
plans.
we could talk to Chief about too, that since, I mean, nobody from district staff is here on on Sundays or Saturdays usually. So maybe we just tell the Pony League that when our police come and say, get off the field, then get off the field.
Yes.
And I'm sure if there was an umpire, because umpires pretty much.
Umpires
Yeah.
are the ones.
Yeah, they're
But
practicing.
they're during practice, it's
Yeah,
just the
no,
coach,
it's-
to coach the parents, and they were fine, they said they were fine with practicing, I'm like, okay.
Do we have a script that our announcer reads? What we do? You have the script already?
Okay, anything else? Okay, thank you. Do you have one more thing, Dr. Ball?
No, sir.
No? Board members, anybody have any questions?
There's just no closed session.
No closed session. Meeting adjourned 1:34.